Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm your host, Brad Williams, and today, buckle up, because I'm talking to the wildly creative Big Love Car Wash. All right, so let's start with the name. You hear it and you're like, okay, what's going on with this? But I want to know more. Well, I want to tell you the good news. The music absolutely delivers on that curiosity. In the episode, we talk about how the band came together and what it's like writing this music that walks the line between tight musicianship and total spontaneity. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with the musical machine known as Big Love Car Wash.
Turn into years. Celia helps you dry your tears, and a love forms between you in loving memory of the one who's still at sea. Though parts of you for Janna ache, another part accepts your fate. A life on shore with her could never be. Now evermore she's still at sea.
I've been taking a deep dive anywhere I can find your live recordings, studio recordings, and I'm a new fan. I'm really enjoying what you guys are doing. It's fun music. It's has a lot of emotion behind it, and just a lot of good musicality. And so, yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for the music.
Thanks
you're
for
doing.
listening. That really means a lot from a fellow
Brad.
music nerd like yourself.
That is an accurate statement. We've had a little bit of time to kind of meet each other before we started recording, but I'd love to just take a few minutes and maybe you can kind of tell me and my audience a little bit about yourselves and kind of where it all started and kind of what brought you to where you are now. So maybe we can start with you, David.
Well, I guess I'm an interesting one to have chosen to start with because I'm the last one to join this group, kind of. But from my perspective, this band started by us being called to a recurring bluegrass gig, and that Soul had a Jester King. That's kind of where I usually trace the beginning of this. That's where I was introduced to everybody in the band. Jester King is this brewery down in Dripping Springs, and Soul used to play there every Saturday. I got a little nod, so yes. And that was a very important detail that we get right here every Saturday. Not anymore though. But yeah, it was a rotating cast of musicians, and I got called one day whenever it was playing. I got called another day when Taylor was playing bass, and then one day there was a gig at Neighbor's Kitchen and Yard out in Bastrop, and we all played together, and it was just kind of this like moment of just pure musical clarity. Yeah, it just kind of felt like we had all played together before, and we had just taken a really long break from doing it, and then we all got back together, and we were like, oh right, this is what it's like to actually breathe the same air and speak the same language. So yeah, it kind of happened by happenstance. I wish there was a prettier way to have said that, but it is what it is.
No, that's great. So Soul, was this kind of your project that you started, or how did
we were all
what was the
playing
origin of that?
kind of organically through the Austin bluegrass scene, and I wasn't looking to start a band. Actually, the funny thing about that gig is that I was moving away from Austin in 2 months' time. So I had planned already to move overseas, living in Ireland currently, and the band that came together just randomly for that group was so inspirational that it forced me to think like, okay, I'm moving away, and yet I think I need to start this band. And so what we did, we organized a tour the following summer. So I was leaving town, but from away from the road, I was able to organize a pretty sweet little tour through Colorado. That's where I'm from. And so I was coming back to town the next year and saying, all right, like, let's all just get in the car and see what happens. And we were playing as the Soul Chase Bluegrass Band at that time. It was very informal. We didn't have a lot of like media. We'd recorded like a few videos, you know, to be used for booking. But we went on the road. We played like 12 shows in 13 days. And it was, again, just this magical connection. It felt so good. It felt so right. And at some point on that tour, we named ourselves. We kind of formalized as a band, and we decided this is something we really wanted to do, you know, despite kind of living in different places. And I'm just constantly honored to say that, you know, even despite living 5 time zones away across an ocean, that that these beautiful musicians who I am just thrilled and honored to play with want to stay in this collaboration. And so we've worked out a great schedule where I kind of split my time. I come back to Austin quite a lot. We were there in November recording our debut album. I'll be back in May for the album release. Then we'll do a tour of several states over the summer. And so we kind of get together every chance we can. But it also allows us to kind of take the pressure off and not be doing it 24/7. So I think there's a nice balance there.
I also do want to just say, I remember Soul. I remember you mentioning at that gig at Neighbors. I remember you saying like, "Oh, well, this is brilliant. We got to take this on tour next year," or something like that. And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds lovely." But I remember you saying it in a way that I was like, "Kind of sounds like he's being a little bit more serious than I would have met." But I just okay. And that was before I really knew you well enough. Soul is there's something to know about Soul, which is that he has all these crazy ideas, and he's like, "I want to do this absolutely, wild, magical, thing," and where normal people dreaming of that idea is already a success. That's like already cool. You're living, right? But then it's like the next day, it's already, the first steps to doing it are already, in place. So it was just kind of crazy to have that idea just be floated like that and be like, oh yeah, of course, dude who is leaving the continent. Yeah, we're going to go on tour next year. We're deciding this on like the first gig we've played together, right? And then like, of course, next year we go on tour and cut a record at Arlen. And
I can't wait to talk about that process. By the way, wow, to get to record in that studio.
Boy. The thing that draws me in is, and I'm going to borrow this from a quote. David was kind enough to join me to watch my favorite collegiate basketball game team last night, and we almost pulled off an incredible upset, but didn't quite get there. But anyway, that coach is said that the team is beating with one heart, and I heard that. I went like, you never hear coaches talk that way, but thank God he is. But when I heard that, I went like, that's apt for us, because what's meaningful to the group of us is that we're kind of looking out for each other and what we can do to share with each other. Like it's not one person saying, hey, this is my thing, do this thing that I'm saying to do. It's very much like, hey, I've got an idea. Does it interest you? And go like, yeah, I want to try that out, and we just bounce ideas off each other, and we kind of build kind of this swirling, I imagine that jar of that you get a tornado kind of swirl together with, but that's kind of what it is. And things just start happening. It's passion, it's energy, it's focused, not just happenstance, not just one of us kind of going off on our own. We're working, we're doing this thing together. And that's, I've played in so many bands over the years, and that's what's really unique here, is that we all seem to be looking out for each other and what we want to accomplish together. It's just, for me, it's just what our name says. It's big love. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the thing that I noticed in just reading up about each of you individually. I mean, you're all established players, all established musicians, that, you know, you can go out and be a hired gun, or you could probably play with anyone that you would want to. And it's so encouraging, and it's so inspiring to see that you've chosen to do this collective thing together. That it certainly comes across in the music that you're making. That yeah, we can all do our thing, but you know, the sum is greater than the parts. You know, it's really nice.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, with kind of tying on to that, I threw a song over the ocean yesterday, and I was delighted to see a response this morning of, "Hey, I kind of hear a trumpet part. Maybe I'll try that out." I just love it. I mean, and that's Soul, who's trying out some trumpet these days. And yeah, it's exactly that. You know, what inspires each other about what we can do and what we hear, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the sorry.
No, go ahead, Dave, please.
We're talking about happenstance, and Everett was saying that it isn't happenstance, and you, Brad, saying that we all kind of chose to do this thing. To me, it kind of does feel like happenstance in a way, and that's what makes it so special for me. Where it's like it's like a shared. I mean, I think Everett, we're just saying the same thing, but I'm gonna say it in different words so that I get to disagree. It really feels to me like we're just like the Goonies or something. Like we're just like a bunch of kids, and we're just doing the thing that we want to do. It's like not even yes, every step is meticulously planned, not in a sterile kind of like cynical way, but it is, we're taking it very seriously, and we're being very conscious of the steps that we're taking. But by the same token, it really feels like we just, I think there's a John Mulaney skit about playing basketball, and he's like, I feel like I just rented my body and I'm still figuring out how it works. Something like that. And like, I feel that same whimsical thing with this, where it's like, I feel like we just stepped into this band, and it's like, we're just playing around and we're figuring it out, and we're feeling it out. And that I keep on alluding to something that I think you want to get to later, but that's something that I think was really present at Arlen. And I think that just encapsulated that quality of ours as a band really well, like the experience of being there.
Yeah.
Where we really just were like, okay, well, here's the song that we're bringing. Let's see where it goes, rather than like, this is what we should do because we're doing this and this is what we want and whatever. It's like, well, here's the song. We're here. We already did all the planning and we're in the place and whatever. Now let's like develop the song organically and just kind of literally play with it and see what kind of weird, silly, magical, brand new stuff can come from it that we couldn't have planned on doing if we'd tried to.
Yeah. Well, since we're right here, we can bounce around a little bit. It's okay. Let's talk about that recording process. First of all, tell me about getting to record in that space. I mean, what was that experience like? I mean, I looked at the website and just looking at some of the credits to the artists that have, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
There were so many moments of just pinching ourselves. I think my favorite one was like David getting up from one of the chairs in the recording booth, or in the control room, excuse me. And he's like, man, that's a really comfortable chair. And our engineer Joseph goes, oh yeah, that's Paul Simon's chair. He just likes to leave it in here because he's in here so often. And that's just one of the four chairs that's like sitting in the control room. And that kind of happens every day. Like there will be some story or a piece of gear or some photo on the wall that you just go like, oh, that happened here too? Like, I didn't realize that, that this Grammy winning album and this Grammy winning album. And I think what it really allowed for us to do, having both the gear and the space, because it's been expertly designed, but also the kind of ethos and the feeling of those kind of legends with us, is it removed any barriers between kind of what we were thinking and then actually being able to create that in the mix, having a world-class engineer like Joseph and having so much inspiration, it just felt like a very clean process from, what it would be like if, whatever zany idea came out. And then a couple minutes later or a couple takes later, like we got to hear that back in real time. And sometimes it was exactly what we wanted, and sometimes we tweak it a little bit, but I'd never experienced such a short lag time between conceiving of something and then actually actualizing it.
Yeah, I would imagine
Very
that.
thoroughly.
I would imagine that you would be, you have that moment where you can think, well, I'm in this hallowed space here where I could either feel completely inferior of where I am, or I can say I'm completely inspired by what all has happened here, so I'm going to step up my game and let's go for it. And obviously, that's what you did, right?
Yeah, and there's also just the acoustics of the space, whether it be that they've been honed throughout the ages or that the engineers and technicians kind of say, like, no, we're going to set you up here because this has worked. We know it's worked, and here's the sounds that you can listen to, show it works. And also the just where you stand, all that type of thing has been tried before, and they know that'll facilitate, feeling really good about what you're playing and how you're interacting with everybody else. There was something about the acoustics in the space that really contributed a lot to what we felt, and the ambiance. I mean, and our engineer Joseph Holguin, just incredible. Like, not only does he know his stuff, like, I mean, he, any which way of a preamp or a microphone or an amplifier or where to put the mics or which settings to use. I mean, he knows all that, obviously, but he also knows how to bring us together to accomplish kind of what Soul was saying. Hey, what would it sound like if we tried this mic on this instrument? Okay, well, if we're going to do that, we should probably sit up here, and that's the best way to get that. I mean, and it was, 2 minutes later, then we're doing it. And then he just had so many stories and was so friendly. Like, he brought us in. It didn't feel like, hey, I'm the engineer, you're the band. Yeah, if you want to record, great, I'll do that. It was more like we're a family. Yet again, another member of our extended family.
That was for me, what was always so shocking about working at Arlen, and the thing that has stuck with me the most, and that I just keep on telling everybody. And I message Lisa, who's one of the owners. I've told her this. I'm probably beleaguering the point by now, but the thing that I'm just so ridiculously grateful for is that we got to go into a space that oozes history from the walls. That is like, I don't know, the records on the walls are like holding the walls up kind of thing. It's like a place that has so much ridiculous history in every drop of paint in there, everything, right? And to be in a place like that by all accounts should be horribly intimidating and just daunting, I guess. I walked in there, and another thing that I'm really grateful for, I can be a bit of a golden retriever. And I kind of walked in there the first day, and it didn't occur to me that the people who were sitting in the lobby might have been there to be working on something and whatever. But so I just walked in, and I'm like, "You're all my best friends!" Hey! And so I just sat down with this group of people, and I started hanging out with them. And then I went into the control room, and I said to Joe, "I'm like, yeah, man, those folks out there are so nice." And he's like, "Are you talking about Freddie Fletcher?" And it turns out that I was just making a fool of myself and making dumb jokes about my butt and whatever to Willie Nelson's nephew and his wife, Lisa, the two owners, the powerhouses that are in charge of this icon of an establishment. But that carried through for me every single day that I was there. And what Everett just said about Joe is so true, that he is, Joe is a wizard. The dude has, he's got his accolades. He's established. He knows what he's doing. He is a solid professional in his field, but he was also basically being a family therapist in there. He's helping us flesh out ideas together and work through stuff that we're just kind of trying. It's every step of the way. It just felt like I was home there. And it really blew my mind that I could go into a place that has, Willie's gold records on the walls and not feel intimidated by that. And instead just walk in there and be like, okay, here we are. We're home. I can put down the stress from my day job.
And I feel like that's such a good fit for our band, because we call ourselves a found family band. And I feel like a big part of that is bringing people in. So I grew up going to bluegrass festivals and playing around campfires, and it was always an explicitly inclusive space. There are exceptions, of course, and gatekeeping in every scene, and we talk about that and try and raise awareness of that. But music culture to me has always been very open and encouraging, and there's been very little of this elitism and kind of name dropping or any kind of barrier towards people just getting involved in the community, and to see that at such a high level in this institution it just aligns so perfectly with what we're about as musicians.
Yeah, that's great. When you went into the studio, I guess I have a couple questions about the production process. Did you have your arrangements kind of prepared when you went in, or did you kind of flush some of that out? And did they have everyone recording in the same room, or how was the setup during the recording?
Yeah, we met for a few weeks in advance to work out the arrangements, to try out the songs. I mean, some of them changed quite dramatically, and that's one of the most beautiful parts of the process. That's actually the part I love the most about songwriting, is saying, here's something, and then someone else says, what if we moved this part here, we put a G sharp minor in there, and then, oh my gosh, it's so much more than that initial idea, So yeah,
go back to this. It's a stick that lives on my table, and it's from the studio. We'll talk about it later. Has to do with what he's saying.
So we met up for several weeks, or actually 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and really worked everything out. Had a distinct game plan. To be quite blunt, we reached out to several folks to produce, but the timelines just were not going to work out. And so ultimately we just said, well, we're going to self-produce. And one of the reasons that we chose Arlen and Joseph was that Taylor, our bassist, had worked with them before and had the experience that Joseph not only was just an amazing engineer and everything I've said before, but that he also, if you asked him, if you had the right dialogue, you'd be able to engender the feedback that is not a producer, but would help us make producing decisions. Mm-hmm. So that really worked well to help flesh out, whenever we had a challenging moment, like, is that really the right part? Or should we keep those 4 measures in here? The question became, Joseph, what do you think? And then he'd say, here's what I think. And it was unambiguous. It was exactly what, we needed. So that was the going into it. I don't know, David or Soul, if you want to talk about the actual recording process within Arlen itself.
Yeah, sure. The setup was as live as possible while still getting really nice, clean sound. We did have to isolate the fiddle. So Everett had this little cave in the back, which was like, we could see him through the window, but we called it the fiddle cave.
No, not the cave. What did we call it?
The fiddle and drum cave. Yeah.
Fiddle and drum cave. Fiddle, drum, and choir cave.
It was a cave? I remember it so much more generously. I remember it like a palace or something like that.
Anyways, the image of him cramped and sad. He was definitely had plenty of room to get fresh air. But just because of, there you go.
Rearranged fiddle.
Yeah, he had, bathroom breaks and all the humane stuff.
Grass fed.
So we were all playing at the same time. We didn't overdub any of our parts. We did overdub some extra instruments. And on a couple songs, David would play piano and then also electric guitar, or Everett would play lap steel and also fiddle. So we did overdub a few parts, but as far as the core rhythmic sections, we were always playing at the same time. We would hear everyone in our headphones. Actually, we did a few live takes because we were shooting some videos. And so we did those just all in one room. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And actually, Joseph recommended that next time we go in to cut our next record, that we do more kind of around a couple mics live recording. Because we started as a live band, and we are a very tight live band. I feel we play off each other in this really organic and improvisational way. And that comes through in moments on the record. And honestly, I'm really glad we did it this way, because we found sounds that we never would have if we'd all just been playing in one room. We delved into a lot of more electric sounds, rock, kind of folk rock elements that we would never have done just playing live, the 4 of us. But I'm really excited to try on the next version, bringing those all into one room and getting a bit more of that back and forth between us all. So there's pros to each of the processes. I'm really glad we did it this way.
So at the studio also, there are lines of sight pretty much everywhere. So obviously it's different than being in the same space and really like being able to play off each other. But when I was in the piano room, that's the only time that I couldn't see Everett in his fiddle palace soul. But everyone else could see each other. You know, you look, there's big windows from the control room into the live room, into the drum room. Again, the piano room is isolated, but that was just deeply personal. It was about me as a person. There's something I wanted to mention before that I forgot to. It's a bit late, but I think it's worth mentioning. One of the things that made that studio feel like home is obviously, you know, the people I mentioned and all of that stuff, but also just these guys and Taylor, who's not here right now, and Merrick, Soul's dad, Merrick, is all but a fifth member of the band. Like I want to be Merrick. I tell him that all the time. I'm going to stop now because I'm just going to start weeping. I love that man too much. But we would start our mornings pretty often by standing in a circle, holding hands, and we'd be either in the patio outside or literally in the control room with Joe right there, like getting himself set up or whatever it is. Would stand in a circle, holding hands, and one at a time go and look at each person and say, "I love you, Soul. I love you, Taylor. I love you, Everett. I love you, Merrick." And then it's the next person's turn, and they go down the line and they tell everybody. So it's like we're starting our days as a family, right, in every sense. And then, you know, doing group yoga sessions that Taylor would usually run, right? Soul?
Yeah, I mean, he's
also.
Yeah, he's our physical coordinator, I'd say. He's a very, very fit and ergonomically sound man.
An ergonomically sound man. Dude, he would love that. You got to remember to tell him. He would really like that.
And one other thing I gotta, because I don't know if folks, you've looked at the Arlen website, Brad, so you kind of have an idea of the space. But for anybody who isn't familiar with Arlen, it's got multiple live rooms. They're, I don't know, about the size of a small house, you know, each live room. And so what impressed me, I mentioned earlier, it's just really good acoustics. I mean, it just sounds so natural. Sounds like your living room, right? And so Taylor would be playing upright bass in the same room that Soul would be playing mandolin. And what I'd be nervous about was, well, the bleed. And that's yet another thing that, of course, I had tons of experience. I knew exactly which gobos to set up where to minimize that. So we could get a really nice live sound, same room, looking at each other. Well, they were. I was in my fiddle palace. But in yet another... So Studio B has its own live room, and that's where I was, as well as the drummer. When he came in on a few tracks. So Sammy and I would hang out back there. But yeah. So yeah.
The rest of us were so jealous.
Sammy and I had a good time.
So there's some tracks on the album that will also have drums.
It came out to be about half of them.
That's awesome.
Like I said, we kind of came together as a bluegrass band, but we have so many different diverse kind of backgrounds and influences beyond that. And so when we set out to make this record, we were really clear, like, we don't want to make a bluegrass record. And a big part of that is instrumentation. Like, I think about bluegrass mostly as a texture, and it is specific to like the 5 bluegrass instruments, you know, banjo, fiddle, mandolin, guitar, double bass. And you can achieve that effect with other instruments. Of course, I've seen some like incredible, you know, versions of that. But like when you add drums, it really gives you more options and options beyond that to expand the palette beyond bluegrass. And especially like leaning into kind of some of our other influences. So jazz coming from David and Taylor, both being like excellent jazz musicians. Everett's been in rock bands throughout his life. And like we kind of leaned into this jazz inspired folk rock. You know, for want of a better word, it comes out sounding Americana, and that's kind of what we've been calling it, you know, because you got to name your genre at some point. But I'm really excited to play live with this arrangement with our drummer and to have this like beautiful wide palette to draw from.
Yeah. When you're talking about drawing from influences, I've been curious about that, and I'd love to ask each of you. I guess your origin story as a musician, and how it all started for you as a player and or a singer, and what were you hearing growing up? Which artists were you gravitating to and listening to kind of develop your style and your approach to music?
Yeah,
And so I'll just
sure.
start with you, since you
I
just
was in a
started.
family band. I saw that you and your son both play, and I think that's like one of the best ways to be introduced to music. Um, it's like I was really blessed to play with my dad from age 4, and we were hippies traveling a lot, and so we would like busk and street perform kind of wherever we were. That was around Europe for a while, and then it ended up in Colorado when I was about 6. And we discovered bluegrass festivals around that time because that's like the primary summer music culture of Colorado is these big bluegrass festivals. Um, and I remember just going into the campgrounds and around the fire jam circles from age 6, 7, 8 onwards, and you learn really quickly like the kind of jam etiquette and the form, and if you know a couple of songs you can participate so fast. Like that's one of the things that I love about bluegrass specifically is it's so participatory. It can be so inclusive, with a little bit of intentional jamming. And so I just totally fell in love. I never had to be told to practice because I was just so into getting more into the scene. And so every summer I'd go to Telluride Bluegrass Festival, Rocky Grass, Pagosa Springs, and I would see, the legends of bluegrass. So Del McCurry, Sam Bush, more recently, like Sierra Hull, Big Richard, Molly Tuttle. Like they've just those festivals have hired the best and the brightest from every year, bluegrass canon, and so I was very much a bluegrass musician most of my life, with the kind of side influence of jam bands, like Fish and the Grateful Dead, because my dad was really big into jam bands, and the Colorado scene as a whole is really infused with this kind of high energy jam grass. You have bands like Yonder Mountain String Band and Trampled by Turtles and the infamous String Dusters kind of pushing bluegrass in the direction of that psychedelic rock. And so I always came at it from a very non-traditional kind of extended solos and allowing for a 12-minute song, and that's not a bad thing if you're all really feeling it. As long as you're not just noodling, like that could be a great thing. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of applied that craft in Austin for a while. I had different jam grass bands. I have like a few of my own recordings that kind of get at that style. But then I was looking to expand that for a long time, and feeling like in a not a rut, but just playing all the same licks. As I think we've all experienced, like when you know a style really well, you start to sound like yourself, and that's not a bad thing, as long as you like it. But I was really wanting to get outside of that comfort zone. So meeting David and Taylor was great for that, to pull me into jazz a little bit. I've loved like learning standards with them and trying out a new style. And I got an electric mandolin and kind of delved into all of that. And then more recently living in Ireland and kind of going deep into Irish folk music and the songwriting tradition a little bit more strongly than the playing tradition even has been so good for my playing. I've taken up bouzouki, and as Everett briefly mentioned, I've tried to learn trumpet in the last couple of months. I'm still in the phase of like not wanting to practice when the neighbors are home, but I just always want to be learning something new.
Yeah.
Still love it. Come on.
Yeah. How about you, Everett?
Yeah. So I played with the family band since I was 4 years old. My dad was just that was a dream of his, to have a family band, So I think my earliest memories of that were playing at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. They had a Mountain Folks Music Festival every summer, and boy, looking back at it, I just think it was pretty arduous. You played an hour on, then you had an hour off, hour on, hour off. So you had literally 4 hours during the day, and you are performing acoustically. They'd have bands around the entire campus there. So my dad, he plays all sorts of instruments. He played the fiddle or viola and violin when he was growing up, and the drums. So there was an old Slingerland set that I found of his in my in our shed one day. So I just set it up and started teaching myself drums one day. And was just delighted. Like, he had never mentioned anything about it. And there they were. It was a red sparkle Slingerland drum set. It's just beautiful. But yeah, it was. What's that?
You better write that song, Red Sparkle Slingerland Drum Set.
Oh my gosh.
You kidding me? Write it.
And my mom is a singer, and also plays guitar and lap dulcimer. I should say my dad plays hammer dulcimer. That's his main instrument. Both plays it and makes them. He's made about 500 of them. And my brother, my older brother, it plays guitar and sings. He actually was a member of the Arkansas Boys Choir. I grew up in Arkansas. So he's the trained one in the family as to how to use his voice. And so is the four of us. And we'd perform folk songs, songs that my dad, he's also an historian. So he would just look up all these different songs in the folk genre, and that's what we perform on stage. I honestly, looking back, I don't know how we ever got, 4 hours worth of material. I don't know the progression that led to that, but we did I'll Fly Away. We did, Colors, a song, Faded Love, just all these songs that he would accrue from different sources. And then one day I remember I was working on the house, doing something, or maybe I was just, jumping around the house. And my dad said, I was 7 years old. And he said, hey, do you want to learn to play the violin? I'm like, why not? Sounds good to me. And so he promptly got me connected with a Suzuki violin teacher. And the really important thing, and the thing I teach to this day, the important thing about Suzuki, and I think other successful forms of learning to play an instrument, are when you have someone advocating for you while you're learning. So he would go to every lesson with me. It almost makes me tear up, honestly, to think about it.
Are you kidding?
But literally every lesson he was there, and he would practice with me. Like, I think back, and I think, like, when you're learning something, you get frustrated. And I remember reflecting back and going like, no, you can't tell me to do this. You go like, we just got to get through 10 times in a row perfectly on this line, and then you'll have it. So, and as I said, he had played violin for a while, so he could play with me for a bit. But anyway, so I took Suzuki violin, ultimately joined the Arkansas Symphony Youth Orchestra, started my own rock bands with I grew up in Arkansas, so we didn't have many options on the radio. So there's a lot of classic rock. So if you ever want me to play a Deep Purple song, I can probably do it.
I didn't do it. Wait.
Yeah. I played the electric bass, electric guitar, and drums in those bands. And then, moved on to college, and then I studied engineering, but I got to tell you, it's just part of the balance of my life is playing music. Like, I just have to have it.
Sure.
I think all of us being musicians, we know, can feel that. So I joined some country rock bands. We toured the United States for a bit. I should say a key part of my playing, because Soul was mentioning his experience with the bluegrass scene and jamgrass. My dad and mom are also dance teachers. They taught clogging, and they taught square dance and contra dance, and they needed a fiddler to play for the dances. So I sat in with the bands. I learned tons of tunes, and I think most importantly for my musical development, I learned how to play for dancers. And that's it. It's just a skill that you don't. It's really hard to teach. Like, you just have to observe, see how people are, moving, and gradually adjust the rhythm of your bowing and playing. So it's both intriguing, but keeps that solid rhythm going. So that's kind of where I come from. And I still know, I know like 500 or 1,000 fiddle tunes. Just, someone will start playing something. Oh, yeah, I know that one.
It's a pretty conservative guess. I'm thinking encyclopedia. It's scary.
Yeah. So, the improv part came about because once you've played a melody about 20 times for a dance, you just naturally want to add stuff to it. So I came about improvisation less from a solo perspective and more from a, what can I do that would make this a little bit more interesting, honestly, for myself? And then I'd get feedback from folks saying like, hey, you did some different stuff for that dance. What did you do? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Just trying this out, So
that's a big Bill Evans thing too. I'm pretty sure that's why he says that you're supposed to play like rather than practicing 10 songs in a day, you practice one song for 10 days. And kind of the point of that, my interpretation is so that you get bored of it and so
that's
that you start experimenting and trying different things because you're so familiar with the song at this point that you have to change it for your sanity. Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
No. I mean that's it. Yeah. So I for better or for worse, I just always bring a rhythmic element to the music that we're playing. That's that, and also because I played with my mom's singing, I learned to play harmonies to her. So there's kind of the two things I love doing is just figuring out what's the rhythm that supports the song, and what can I do that would support the vocal, the lyrical content of what's going on. And I'm happy to say when I go back home to Arkansas, I still jam with my parents. That's one of the things that just brings me a ton of joy. So
that's when his parents find time between building a castle and hiking the entire Appalachian Trail and doing what other crazy stuff. These are real things.
Actual castle.
Wow.
They're the cool. They're so cool.
Whatever you're picturing, it's more impressive than that.
Wow.
It is more of a castle than whatever castle is in your head right now.
That's fantastic.
It is a legitimate castle.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
With their hands. Oh,
yeah.
So cool.
That's incredible.
So I'm so happy to have the last thing I'll kind of pull it back together is I co-lead a bluegrass jam here in Austin. Took over for a renowned fiddler named Eddie Dickerson, who moved to Virginia, and I didn't want to see the jam go away, so I told his co-lead, I said, I'd like to keep this going. Let's do it. So we still have it. 6 years later, still running strong at what's called the Butterfly Bar here in Austin, Texas. And I feel like, I may be wrong about this, Soul, but I feel like that's where I first met you. I feel like you showed up. I don't know how you heard about it, but I'm glad you did. And what I distinctly remember, and there's so many things I love about Soul, but one of them is that your memory and your follow through are just incredible to me. So I remember you're looking at me and saying like, okay, because you just got my phone number. He said like, I'm going to call you. And I'm like, all right, I hope you do. And indeed he did. And that was for some of the shows that David was mentioning a while ago.
We're going to go on tour next year. And then what do? We go on tour next year.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
Incredible. That's great. How about you, David?
Well, after all this family band talk, my dad is a transportation engineer.
Okay.
He wrote his doctorate on traffic lights, which actually, I say that like it's a silly thing, but actually, I mean, it is a silly thing objectively. Sorry, Dad. But I do actually think that is significant in a way because he did prove to me from a very early age that you can take what is objectively the most boring subject in the world and make it interesting if you care about it enough and are interested in it enough. So you can talk to him about traffic lights and be like, whoa, cool. Like, tell me more, and that's, so I don't know. It wasn't supposed to be relevant when I said it. It was supposed to be a bit, but then I think it actually might be. But anyways, so I grew up doing like data entry and beta testing for a GIS software. My mom, when I was growing up, worked in public health research for tuberculosis, and then she ended up leaving that and becoming a mosaicist. So she committed to art. So that's kind of my big artistic influence. She is an amazing mosaicist,
and she designed our album cover.
CHR. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say it yet or not, but yeah, okay.
Oh, that's so cool.
Our album cover is a mosaic that she made, and it is It's a mosaic of a line drawing that she made of a mother hugging her son, but it's kind of an abstract thing. And she made it in 2020 when we were all locked up, and when it made her feel very sad that she had to say hi to her kids by bumping elbows, and that she couldn't give her kids a hug. So that's the inspiration behind the mosaic. That's going to be our album cover. But yeah, so my musical background, I grew up, my dad has a vinyl collection that he inherited from his grandfather. And I don't know, there's some old guy in my family. And and it's mostly, it's a lot of late Russian romantic composers. So I grew up with a lot of that, a lot of Tchaikovsky and Prokofiev and whatever. And my mom is from Argentina. And I grew up with, so everyone in my immediate family was born on a different continent. That's another kind of relevant detail, I think, for my artistic voice. Because I grew up in a very culturally amorphous environment. But I guess musically, I grew up with Argentinian classic rock. There's a band called Sui Generis. That was a huge, huge influence on me growing up, and continues to be. In ways that I'm realizing now, actually, listening to the record, I hear lines and I'm like, wow, I definitely picked that up from this record that I didn't even remember. But anywho, that's what I grew up with. I remember when I was 4, I was sitting in the car listening to a Colombian cumbia record. My dad grew up in Colombia. And I thought that is what guitars were. I didn't realize that guitars were allowed to play other things too. But I decided I really wanted to play guitar. And I went to the Newton Center School of Music or whatever. And I remember I asked my teacher if I could learn how to play the song Faint by Linkin Park, because I was just obsessed with that song. And she was like, yeah, of course we can. And I was like, but there's no guitar in that song. She was like, yeah, there is. But also that doesn't matter. And that's when I learned that guitars exist outside of Colombian cumbia. I learned that with the song Faint by Linkin Park. It changed everything. And and from there, I just became horribly addicted to the chagrin of all of my neighbors, because I got an electric guitar after a year of showing I was committed. And I used it a lot with the amplifier that I had with it. It wasn't as loud as those, but it was loud enough. And I had kind of a big metal stint for a bit. I played in a death metal band. I want to say 8th grade through 9th grade. We were awesome. Oh, let's see if it works. Yeah, it has. Is it going to do it?
Oh, it's not doing it.
Oh, man, my camera was doing this weird reaction stuff, and now I'm just here is this live?
You're the full animation.
Is this going to make the cut? Okay, sorry. But I played death metal for a little bit, and then I got really into revival folk stuff. So we mentioned Paul Simon earlier, that I was sitting on his chair trying to get some musical osmosis through my butt on his chair. I'm going to leave that bit right there. Forget I said that. So Paul Simon, huge influence. And for a very long time, every song that I wrote had to have a reference to a Paul Simon song in it, to a Paul Simon lyric in it. So if you listen real close on the record, you'll catch that in some of the songs. But so a lot of folk kind of solo approach to music. I played with other people, but I never really felt that my voice was developing or expanding, or I don't know. I struggled finding a band where I felt that what we were creating was an extension of my voice, or that my voice was really contributing to it in a way that felt, I guess the end product didn't feel like my voice in the same way that it has with this group, certainly. But I think for a long time that led me to just kind of want to do my solo thing for my songs, at least. I just had no idea how to bring them to life with other musicians. I played my kind of solo folk stuff, played a bunch of shows doing, singer-songwriter-y type stuff. And then when I was, along with the rest of the world, locked up in my house for a very, very, very long time, I kind of decided that this would be a good time to really, relevant detail. I ended up getting into bluegrass. After my really big singer-songwriter kick, I came down to Austin about 10 years ago to direct fundraising campaigns for nonprofits. And I ended up moving onto my friend's school bus when I was here. And he had a school bus that he had stripped the seats and put in a hardwood floor and queen size bed in the back. And there was a kitchen with running water. It was awesome. But I moved onto that bus with him, and I lived there for 4 or 5 months, and we played a bunch of bluegrass together. So I got really into bluegrass for a few years. And I just kind of started focusing on instrumentalism then, and a little bit less on songwriting. I spent some years kind of honing that. I went back to Boston, where I'm from, and there's a bar in Cambridge called the Cantab Lounge. And at the Cantab Lounge, every Tuesday, they used to have a bluegrass night where in the basement, they would just open it up and there were like little tables and there's a stairwell over there and the stage and whatever. And little groups would just kind of set up. You'd post up around this table and then there's a different group around that table. And you just get to jam with people, which sounds lovely. It was lovely. But the people who are there jamming at these groups are all of the people who win awards at the IBMAs. It was the Lonely Heart String Band was there. Mile 12, David Benedict. He's the guy who recommended my first mandolin to me because my only mandolin, but whatever. The opportunity to play with those people and to learn from them in that context where I'm just sitting down playing music with them, not learning, not explicitly. I'm not there to learn from them on paper anyways. And no judgment, no nothing. Just we sit in a circle and we're passing solos. It was exactly emblematic of the inclusive nature of bluegrass that Soul was alluding to earlier. So anyways, sorry, I'm making this real long over here. I'm going to try to cut to the chase a bit. During lockdown, I was kind of at the peak of this, or I was approaching, I guess, the peak of my real strong focus on instrumentalism. And then I decided that I wanted to get more into contemporary jazz because in bluegrass, there's a really strong overlap with jazz manouche, with that tradition of jazz. And a lot of folks kind of played, that Django style thing. So I got really into like early, 1920s, 30s jazz for a bit. And then I discovered Gilad Hexelman, who is a big deal for me. Gilad Hexelman, that record is his. He's on Trio Grande as well. They're incredible. But I got to take 2 lessons from him that completely changed the trajectory of my musical life. And I attribute a lot of my, I guess, the way that my voice has developed musically in the past 5 years is like very, very largely attributed to Gilad. My first lesson with him was cool. He kind of like gave me some ideas and things that I needed to work on. And then the second lesson, he absolutely put me in my place because I hadn't learned them. And that was the best. It was the best. Yeah. Like, I'm so grateful to him for that. He told me very bluntly, without mincing words. He wasn't mean about it, but he just told me, you need to practice more. You can't play it.
Yeah.
Boom, like that. So then what did I do? I sat down and I practiced. And I'm so grateful for that. Anywho, all of that, then I ended up moving to Austin, and I found these guys who basically took all of this stuff that I felt I could see, and all of these musical ideas that that were always percolating in my head, but also even ones that felt developed and that I had almost moved on from them, where it's like, this is what I want, and I have it in my head. This is this musical concept, and I have no way to really take it anywhere further. That's just what it is. Boom, done. And now I met these guys and I started making music with them. And all of a sudden it feels like I'm going to be showing the world and showing my family and all of my old friends and all of these people who've been around for my whole musical journey. I feel like I'm finally going to be showing them, this is what I've been talking about. This is what I've been trying to say this whole time that I haven't really been able to articulate because I've just been by myself. This is what's been in my head. Take it. Look. Well, I'm going to shut up now.
Well, I'll say, David, that I noticed with all of you such beautiful playing on the tracks that I've heard, and it's just it's interesting to hear you all speak about these influences and things that you're drawing from and from your personal experiences and from your childhood, and you can hear all of that, but it comes into this beautiful cohesive thing that you have all managed to in a relatively short amount of time that you've developed. Because I think you've only been together, 3 years? Is that right? As far as
actual days spent together, it's less than 6 months. Like it's
wow.
We spend a lot of hours during those days. We were on tour together, so 24/7, and then we were in the studio for like 10 hours a day. But it's still very new, and I keep reminding myself that as we share the project, and I'm so proud and excited and exuberant to get it out there. I'm just thinking like, wow, this is the beginning. Like, we are just getting started.
Well, yeah, and I'm struck by that as you're all speaking, that so many details about each other and such personal information about your families, and I'm like, this is the way it should be. This is the way bands need to be with each other, and that you there's such you can feel the brotherhood, the family with each other, and as we talk to each other, but then again, it translates into the music that you make. It's a beautiful thing.
I feel like
it's really
I felt
nice.
really seen in this. I got to take a couple lessons from Andrew Marlin of Watch House a couple summers ago, and he was talking about forming a band because it was right around when Mighty Poplar had formed, and he said the band of your dreams isn't necessarily going to be the hottest pickers or the people who you've all gone to the same classes. It's the people who you want to just sit on your bedroom floor and play Legos with, and it's the people who like your inner child just like gets each other. And I was like, I have never heard someone put into words how I feel about the band process, because like I mean it helps that like Everett and David and Taylor are all like some of the hottest pickers that I've ever played with. So that's like a bonus. But just the way that we all get each other and laugh with each other. And yeah, we're just like a bunch of kids, mucking around with our toys. Like that is really special to the soul.
That's a beautiful description. The other way I heard it said was you should only play in a band with people that you would be comfortable riding in a car with for 8 hours at a time.
Practically very nice.
That's amazing. I don't know why you started that sentence, and I thought you were going to say like only make a record with people you would build IKEA furniture with.
Well, that's probably another one.
I thought that's where it was going. But I love the car.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So as we're looking ahead, the album releases June 6th. Is that correct? Yeah, not long. It's getting close. And you're doing a couple of single releases. You've released some singles so far, right? And you have 2 more single releases before the project officially releases.
So each of the singles is a double.
That's
fantastic.
Fact,
it's 2 songs. We partly on purpose and partly by accident, we ended up writing some songs in pairs on the album. And so particularly the last set of singles we're going to release in May, but they're very much 2 sides of the same story. And we thought like, well, we can't put these out one at a time. Like we want people to be able to get the full story. And so we'll have pairs of singles coming out.
That's great. And then after that, a tour is on the horizon.
The tour's looking like a lot of fun. We've been thrilled because, booking a tour is so much a promise, both to the venues, but also to whoever's going to come out and see you. You're putting yourself out there and saying, I'm going to deliver this experience as a band. And I've never before felt fully confident in fulfilling that promise as I do with this band, but also having the record and having the tracks to be able to send to people. I feel like we have proof that we can deliver some of this promise. And so it can sometimes feel like shouting into the void, and the music business can sometimes be a little bit of a drain. But honestly, this has been a fun process. Like booking this tour has been fun, and that's not even the most fun part of it. Then we get to go play these shows at these amazing venues.
Right.
And we get to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your sound is just going to develop even more, right? As you get to have the repetition of playing this material night after night, it's just going to get better and better. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really look forward to. I'm proud of the songs, and we talked about the song crafting and arrangement process earlier. But in my mind, that's kind of like that's just one phase of the song's life.
Right?
You actually find out nuances that you want to elaborate on as you play them more.
Absolutely.
I think after you write a song, it's not your song anymore. It's like the second that it is written and it's done. It's kind of the point. The second that you write it, whatever, it is now just a song that exists in the world and it's up for interpretation, whether that's somebody else. Like we were just talking about that with our one of our first 2 singles, Janna, She's Still at Sea. For me, it's so fascinating that song, which when I first heard it, to me, I was like, this is just, I almost said the word just. It's not just anything. That song is so epic, but it's a very linear story, right? Which is something that I really admire that Soul, something that he's able to do really, really beautifully is tell a story that is as compelling as if you were like watching a TV show or something, where it's like, it's a linear thing where you introduce a character, you get invested in that character's story, you learn about this thing that happens, and then the climax, and then whatever, it's like a story. But it's so fascinating to me that song, which is detailed about what happens in it, is the one that I've heard so many different interpretations of what it is that actually happens. Not even interpretations of what the song means and the underlying meanings and whatever, but actually the events of the story, people read them differently. And one of my students had a read of the song that I told Soul, and then Soul was like, I never thought about it that way. And Soul wrote the song. So it's like, I think that on tour, we're going to be playing these songs that we've written. And I think that the experience of playing those songs is going to be very similar to our experience of covering a song by Gillian Welch. Well, I don't Gillian Welch to compare any. That feels inappropriate to even say like that. Mm-hmm. Queen. But in the sense that once we're playing that song on tour, it's going to be a song that we're playing on tour. It's not the song that we cut at Arlen that we have to play with these parts and whatever. It's a song that we're going to be interpreting.
Yeah. I will say about that song, by the way, when I listened to it, I feel like it's like reading a 300-page novel in a 4-minute song. It's quite epic, that song.
That's really sweet. I started life. Well, I started life as a family band musician, but I'd say I started life more as a songwriter than a player. Like, I can remember writing songs when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I went to school for writing. I went to journalism school and I wrote like nonfiction and fiction for a while. And I kind of stopped writing because I stopped writing prose because I was getting so much value out of the songwriting, and it was allowing me to kind of pour all these ideas into one medium. And so now, like, I think there are novels that exist within me that just get out as songs. They're like, I don't have time. You think I'm going to sit for however many months to work on a novel? Like, no shot. 20 minutes. Let's get this thing out.
Yeah.
It's great.
See, he says that, but he also wrote a musical.
I am in the process of writing a musical. See how that goes.
Yeah, we're working on it.
What?
Yeah, David's kindly come on board to help with that project that's been stagnant for years.
All right, I expect a concept album in the next few years, guys. That's amazing. I see. By the way, I saw so I'm in St. Louis, and I saw in the on your itinerary that you will be in Springfield, I think.
Yeah, we'll be in St. Louis actually itself, because we're playing a Shoe Tree listening room. So that's maybe recently added, but
okay,
that's in November.
Oh, wait, is that November? Mm-hmm. That is also November. Yeah.
So I will absolutely
thanks so
come
much,
and see
Brad.
you guys, and can't wait to hear it in person. So. Well, guys, I just can't thank you enough for spending some time. I am just such a big fan, a new fan, and I just encourage everyone to check you out and be on the lookout for the new singles that will be arriving ahead of the release on June 6th. And I just wish you all the best. It fills me with such joy seeing how much joy you have about what you're all doing. It's so inspiring.
Thank you so much, Brad. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and to hear how you think about everything. You're doing a really good thing with this project.
Well, thank you guys, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Big love.
And that's the ride, folks. My conversation with Big Love Car Wash. If you dug this episode, do yourself a favor and go check out their music. Stream it. Catch a live show, tell your friends about it. And hey, if you're enjoying the Bandwich Tapes, I'd love for you to hit the follow button, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs a new favorite band to obsess over. Every little bit helps, and I just appreciate the support. And a big thanks to my pal, Mr. Mark Mundy, for writing the show theme, Playcation. Until next time, I'm Brad Williams, and thanks for listening.